Hi, I'm Kyle MacLean X, and this is Rekt.
Hello and welcome to Rekt Podcast. I am your fearless host, Chamber. I am unfortunately without Mr. Bunchu Betts. He is in the midst of, actually, he is currently married. He is on his honeymoon. He was married over the weekend. I think he got married on Friday the 13th. So best of luck to him. But he is enjoying his honeymoon now. He shot me a quick video of the hotel room. It looked pretty good, so he'll be enjoying himself for the next week. I did have the opportunity to bring Mr. Kyle MacLean on the show today. We are going to have some fun. We all know Bunchu is not a shitcoiner like I am, so I found one of my favorite fellow shitcoiners, Kyle MacLean. Kyle, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Chamber. Thanks for having me on.
I am very excited. As soon as Bunchu said he was going to be off this week, I think we reached out right away. I said, hey, we got to get you on. We got to talk some altcoins. I've been bearish on altcoins myself. I feel like that maximalism, virus spreading in me. I don't feel like buying bags anymore. I need you here to, pump me up and get me back on the wagon. You know what I mean?
I'll do my best.
Is it on the wagon or off the wagon? Is it on the wagon or off the wagon? I forget. But I need more altcoins in my life.
Yeah.
That's where they kept the booze, was on the wagon. So isn't that where you want to be?
Yeah, I think it's you're on the wagon is a good thing. I'm not sure.
So I guess we'll start off the way we typically do. We like to hear the origin stories. Myself and Bunch, we got wrecked in 2017. We like to hear from other people that have gotten wrecked around the same time, or if not before. It gives us a little bit of hope for the future. Where do you fall in that timeline?
Well, I kind of got in just towards the end of the last bull run, so I think our timeline, yours and mine, are pretty close.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so I
not for either of us, but it's good that I have a fellow compatriot, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. No, I got in just when things were booming, and basically watched all of my bags lose a lot of value, slowly but surely.
Now, were you like me? Like I listened to a lot of podcasts, but when it came to crypto, early on, I would watch a lot of YouTube clips. Are you the same way? How did you get your info on alts?
I was the exact same way. I've never been a big social media person. I had never stepped foot on Twitter or anything like that. So when I decided it was time to pull the trigger and get into this thing, I locked myself in a room, literally, and spent an entire weekend mostly on YouTube. And that's kind of a different place than crypto Twitter. People are quite excited about their bags and lots of...
You said that right. I think there's more bag shilling happening on YouTube than anywhere else. And I think at the time you don't necessarily, appreciate that. So I know I'm guilty of buying YouTuber bags. How are you doing?
Yeah, when I first got in, I was buying. Everybody was shilling the things they had bought at the top just a few months before that, and so it was a lot of like. This is why Stellar. I was pretty excited about things like Stellar and EOS when I first got in. Yeah. And what I would do is I would try to do a little bit of research on them, and then go and see what people said, how high they could go. So if I saw a video that said, Stellar Lumen's going to recover to $20, I was watching that.
100%. A little bit of hopium, right? Is that what they say?
All hopium, yeah. I was a hopium addict. I still am a little bit, but
oh yeah, no, absolutely. I like a nice dopamine rush of hopium. So
yeah.
I remember like PivX being a big YouTube shill. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. And again, nothing necessarily wrong with it. I just remember a lot of YouTubers, talking about it. PivX was a big one. IOTA,
yeah.
I'm trying to think of some other ones. Now, I mean, you're almost like these days. I mean, you could even be shilling Ethereum, and people are calling you, like a shitcoin maximalist at this point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But that being said, I think Ethereum, just looking at the charts today, it's doing something. It's doing something. We're back over, the 19, or I guess, the 19,000 sat range, almost 19.5 it hit today. So it's not bad.
No, it's not bad.
You could have picked up a bag at like just over 16,000. So.
Yeah, and Ethereum is a strange one. All the OGs say Ethereum is the first to move whenever we get an Altseason. Right.
Yeah,
the first to move, and I think I was telling you last week that I have a bit of bearish sentiment towards Ethereum, but that doesn't mean that people are going to pay attention to it and that it's not going to just fly once we get going. Because people that are coming in, I don't think they're going to know things about scaling issues or care about them. And they'll just look down the list, kind of like I did, and went, wow, Ethereum's number 2. That's right. Only $200. Let's get a bag of that.
Well, also, I mean, again, and this is very, very similar. Again, when I got in, it was like, there was Bitcoin, but the second biggest market cap at the time was Ethereum. So as a new person, and again, for another huge bull run, we're going to need a huge influx of new people. And those people are going to look at Bitcoin and say, okay, this is a risky, quote unquote investment. All right. So the next one, again, more risk, more reward. So the next step down is Ethereum, a little bit more risk, maybe a bit more reward, right?
Yeah.
And then I think, you look at apps like Coinbase and kind of those easy onboarding apps, whether that's Cash. I know they have Cash App in the US. Both you and I are from Canada, so we don't have that here.
That's right.
But I think those lower sat or those lower dollar coins, like your Litecoins, you mentioned Stellar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think to get a big bag as opposed to getting a fraction of a Bitcoin or even a fraction of an Ethereum, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think those ones where you can pick up, 100 for $100, yep, or 1,000 for $100 sort of thing,
or like 100,000 for $2.
Right, exactly. I think we'll see a lot of that again. So yeah. I was getting more and more bearish on Ethereum as the weeks and last few months have gone by, just from the sentiment on Twitter. I get affected by Twitter sentiment. So
sure, yeah.
It's like, oh geez, all these people are saying this. I've been hoarding essentially, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Manero
right,
for like the last, 6 to 12 months.
Yeah.
And that was kind of been my plan. And I was just like, oh shit, Ethereum's just going down and down and down versus BTC. And it's like, oh man, maybe did I make the wrong move?
Yeah.
But yeah, it is what it is. You've taken a different route. Like we were chatting about this the other day. What route do you take to make your, we're all in here to at least make a little bit of a fortune if we can. We feel that we're early adopters and get the benefit of that early adoption by hopefully, having a retirement fund set in place or something along those lines. So what's your roadmap to getting there essentially?
Well, so when I first got in, I made a lot of mistakes about what I was attracted to, and I had to kind of figure out what things were just, two guys in a garage. Nothing wrong with that. That's how Google got started.
Right.
But two guys working on a coin that's a fork of something. I was a sucker for that when I first got in because I would think, wow, this is going to be hot. This sounds so great. And then I would just keep getting wrecked on them. And when things, we're in like year 2 of the bear market. And
we sure are.
We've seen things that have great partnerships and they aren't moving. IOTA's partnered with some major car companies and things like that.
Yeah, they've been partnering with I want to say BMW or Volkswagen for like the last 5 years, right?
Right, I think, yeah, things like that. And like they haven't budged at all. They've just lost ground against BTC. So what I did was, I've been in for about 2 years. It was only in the last year or so that I really decided to switch my focus to FA. And if people don't know what that is, there's there's TA, technical analysis, and then there's FA, which is fundamental analysis, and TA is charting and things like that. And I think TA is great. I'm not a charter. I don't really know how to read charts that well. And I think TA is really good. Someone once said it was like we're all in the dark, and the TA guys have a flashlight, and they're really good at telling you what's going to happen 2 or 3 feet in front of you. But they can't really tell in the long term. So I decided that we're in this bear market. I'm just going to focus on ones that have very strong fundamentals and might be attractive to new money coming in, or ones that I could buy a bag of for relatively cheap and then hang on to them for the long term. So I'm not a trader. I'm really good at buying a bag and sitting on it. Well, that's something else I learned too when I first got in was, so I bought most of my stuff in January and February of 2018. And, yeah,
I hear you. Yeah, I laugh, but I just laugh because I also feel the pain.
Yeah, I had dabbled a little bit, and then I went, "That's it." I think I cashed out some RRSPs, which is like 401k for Americans. Yeah. And I went, "That's it. I got my stuff. This is great." Such and such used to be $4. Now it's $1. This is amazing. And then over the next year it went down another 90%. So I decided to focus on ones that I'd be comfortable with hanging on to, and not being a bag holder, but ones that have the best use cases and the best partnerships and the best team. That's one thing I really look for, is to have some adults running it. There's different alts out there right now. When I hear a name like Peter Thiel, who's in this one called Reserve Protocol, I find that's really attractive to me, because Peter Thiel is one of the guys that started PayPal with Elon Musk. And he's got connections all over Silicon Valley. He works a little bit with the White House as an advisor. So when you get someone like that on board and they attract other talent, that altcoin might have a better chance than just a couple guys who are trying to bang it out.
Right.
So I look for things like team members, who's got main nets coming up, and what their tech is. I work in tech right now, so I'm not the techiest guy, and I don't know how to program blockchain stuff, but I'm familiar with it. I used to work with enterprise software companies, and so like large scale things like supply chain. I'm really interested in that, and I think that ones like IOTA, which I'm not into, ones like that and VeChain, I think if there's going to be some that survive, that they would have the best chance of doing that.
Now, when you're doing your researches on teams and stuff like that, do you have go-to sites that you utilize? Whether, I think there's like ICO drops, or I know there's a couple of sites that kind of dig deeper into the coin and token. Do you have any that you would recommend?
Not really, no. The first thing I do, a lot of people I know don't even read the white paper, so I start there. And
could you clarify what a white paper is for anybody listening?
I don't often read the whole white paper, but I'll at least look at it, and then I go on a lot of the teams. Like if they do have a good team members, they will advertise it themselves, and they'll make it clear like who their investors are, who their advisors are, and none of this, like if they do have a good team, it doesn't mean they're going to make it. And I also learned that people can have quote unquote advisors, and it doesn't really mean the coin's going to do anything. Like for example, I was in this one called Encash last year.
Oh yeah. I remember Encash. Encash. I never had a bag, though. I never had a bag. Oh,
I was so excited. Their roadmap looked killer. They had Tim Draper as one of the huge early investors and an advisor. And
every time I hear the name Tim Draper, I think of Don Draper from Mad Men, and I get very confused. I'm like, Tim Draper? Yeah. What is this, 1965?
Yeah, he's got a tumbler full of scotch,
Yeah, exactly. This guy knows how to do business. I mean, he might make a couple of sexual advancements, but he knows how to get things done.
Oh, that Don Draper's on board. Look at that, yeah. Yeah, so that didn't do anything. So it doesn't mean that they are going to work, but usually, it, in my opinion, has a better chance that they might.
Yeah, no, I mean, now, so where are you getting, like obviously you come across these different coins and stuff like that with, these new teams and new white papers. Where are you picking up the news that there's a new, coin that's going to be released, or like, where are you getting that stuff from?
Well, I'm basically obsessed with it. It's kind of all I do. Is I even do it at work. I have like 3 monitors, and I'll keep one minimized with like Twitter and my research on it, and just kind of check it throughout the day. And then when I get home at night, it's all I do. So I'm just researching alts, finding stuff wherever I can. And I have a pretty good group of guys I'm in a chat with on Twitter that we're always bouncing things off each other.
Oh, good.
There's probably like 12 of us that all kind of like the same thing. So
nice.
It's not that I'm just miraculously finding all these. Somebody will say like, "Hey, have you heard of Phantom?"
Everybody kind of chips in there.
Yeah,
what they're finding.
Yeah, so that's a good initial one. Somebody will say, that's a definite shitcoin, or yeah, I heard of Phantom. Did you know they've developed this new such and such for smart cities, and they signed with Dubai or something? And so that's kind of a group effort there. And if I do like one, then I'll do more research on it.
Oh, that's good. Now I see a lot of your tweets, obviously, and I do notice we have some similar stuff in our bag of treats. And that usually makes me feel a little bit better if I see that you're also, you know what I mean? Yeah. You seem to be a smart fellow. So it's that sense of, okay, I think I might be, if Kyle's also looking into this one, maybe I'm not 100% wrong.
Well, I do that too. I do that too with people that have, they're bigger personas than me. If I see that, they're into one too, it's a good feeling, like, oh wow.
Yeah, exactly. So
I can't all be wrong.
Exactly. You can't be wrong 100% of the time. Trust me, it's pretty close for me. But occasionally you will have a quant, and it'll do well.
Yeah. Oh, you were in quant, were you?
Oh, we got into quant early.
Nice.
I think it was like at the time. I think we scraped at like. I think it was like 4 times below ICO.
Oh, beauty. Yeah.
Like it was ridiculously cheap. And then it was just like nothing. I think we 35x'd it or something silly.
Wow. Yeah. Everybody's all excited about Link, but Quant, I mean, wow. Their partnerships and what they're working on is just stunning.
Yeah. So we sold I think we sold all of our bag of that not that long ago, maybe 3-4 weeks ago.
Yeah, I had to sell a big chunk of mine too to finance some other coins.
Well, we wanted to spread the love. We wanted to find the next quant, right? And have some in Bitcoin, right? You want to even out your bags a little bit.
Hey, what's good about quant is that their supply is only 9 million, and I think Link is something like 200 million. So there's only 9 million quants out. Well,
that's crazy.
Yeah, that's circulating supply. And that's something else that I was going to tell you, that when I first got in, I didn't know what I was doing looking at things like supply.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
I had it took me 6 months to figure out that, like, hey, if something has 400 billion tokens, it's not going to $1. And I was convinced that, hey, maybe it will. And so just things like that, I've really honed my numbers, and I have kind of a little algorithm I like to work on. But stuff like that, for anybody coming in, like, you really got to learn basic stuff, like what's active supply, what's circulating supply, what's happened historically. Like, a lot of coins that are over $1, they have supplies less than, say, 500 million. And something like BTT with, whatever it is, 100 billion, it's not a good chance of going that high.
Right. Now, we were talking, Bunch and I were talking the other day, and we've brought this up a couple of times now in the last, couple of months, I would say, is the thought when it comes to altcoins specifically, is that these ones that have gone through their market cycle and are kind of like bottomed out for the most part, like we were mentioning earlier, your Stellars, your Maneros, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And even stuff that was hot, back in 2017, 2018, that's kind of pumped and kind of got back down. Verge, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Tron. We were throwing around the idea, is it a better idea to buy something new that hasn't had a cycle yet?
Yeah.
Or is it better to buy the very dirt, bottoms of these, these ones that have had their cycles already? What are your thoughts there?
Well, that's a good question. I think that for maybe a small handful of ones, it would be good to buy them. But in the most part, absolutely not. I don't think ones like Verge, for example,
Right.
people that have held on to it, there's going to be a lot of bag holders on the way up. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And even something that I think is pretty good fundamentally, I don't have any, but something like an icon.
Sure.
People that do have that, yeah, it's going to do well. But every step up, people are going to just sell it, and that's really hard to get past all the bag holders. So I think that
Now, do you think we'll run into the same situation? Because I thought that too, but I also think when my bags do pump, like for example, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but I know you're a big fan of One Ledger, OLT. Okay. So I bought a bag of One Ledger. I'll tell you exactly when I bought it. I bought it on September 20, almost a year ago.
wow, that's impressive, man.
All right. Shit. I bought it almost a year ago.
That's great.
I'll tell you, not that great. I bought it at 116 sats.
Oh, okay.
All right. Almost a year ago.
Okay.
At the time, I think that, call me crazy, but I think that may have been around ICO price.
Okay.
I might be wrong there, but I feel like that's usually when I buy things, when they get close to ICO.
Yeah.
And then so it went down to, I want to say as low as 40 sats. Does that sound about right to you?
That sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah, so my bag wasn't looking too healthy.
Okay.
But then, not that long ago, I'm going to say maybe a week or two ago, I think it climbed all the way back up to like 150 sats.
Yeah, it's back up today, too.
Right. Yeah, you're right. It creeped up over 100 again.
Yeah.
So it got to it touched 160 twice.
Huh.
I did not sell the bag, and I've been holding on for dear life for almost a year.
Yeah.
So what happens is, at least for me, and I wonder if this is going to be the case for other people, is you see that pumping and you're like, I know what's going to happen next. It's a face melter time.
Maybe.
And they don't sell. So
It
I
could
am
be.
no different than I am almost a year ago. And, we had I would say a pretty big pump a couple of weeks ago.
It was very big, yeah. And I think it's going to continue for that one in particular. And
Right.
I'll get back to answering your new versus old question. But so OLT, One Ledger, they're on KuCoin. And I'm sure you're aware that with the U.S. being
right.
punted out of Binance, there is an Altseason happening. Oh, I hesitate to say that, but there's at least a dozen alts on KuCoin that have just gone bananas, and OLT is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So, but now for new versus old, I really think that the new ones, you have a better chance of making more money with that.
I agree.
Because price discovery, I mean, something like OLT, you can get 100,000. That should or could go to, I think the supply is around 150,000 off the top of my head, or it's in the hundreds of thousands of millions. So that's got a good chance of going pretty far. People will get excited about it. At least that's my thought. And I mean, would you rather have a bag with a smaller amount of icon, or something like OLT that people seem to be excited about? And
I agree.
It'd be the first time like there would be literally price discovery, all-time highs after all-time highs.
I'm with you. I'm excited now. See, this is why I'm not going to sell my bag. I'll just go ahead.
I was going to say I complimented you, but it's true. Like you did good for people are talking about OLT all over the place now, but you had that discernment to get a bag a long time ago, and even though you're underwater, it's gonna something like that will recover, I think.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with the bag at the time, and then obviously, everything went to shit. So it's kind of difficult to recoup that. But I was a big fan, and a lot of smarter people than myself were big fans of it at the time. I remember when I got the bag. So that's one that I was kind of just like, okay, it hadn't had a market cycle yet.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of getting worse. And I was just like, okay, well, let's see where this goes.
When was that, like back in, was it October last year or November, where alts were doing bad all year and then they just fell off a cliff one day?
Jeez.
Like everything went down another
Yeah,
50%.
I feel like that was all of 2019.
It's every Tuesday.
Right? Jeez. Yeah, I think you're probably right. That ended like late in the year. Yeah, there was definitely. I think people were calling the bottoms of a lot of stuff, and then there was another 80% drawback after that. So yeah, it was pretty aggressive.
Just in time for Christmas.
Exactly. Yeah. And Chinese New Year, is that still a thing? Are we still trading on based on Chinese New Year?
Oh man, there's so many of those, eh?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, people are off this week, so we're going to see a drop in the market.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that was shortly after we got in. I remember them, blaming the pullback on Chinese New Year, or I think it was. Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that. I was in utter disbelief when I first got in. I figured maybe 2 or 3 months I'd be making money,
right?
And then it just was like, what?
Here we are.
Crazy. Wow. I know a lot of people that got in around that quit. I don't blame them. And here we are 2 years later.
Right. Like I'm trying to think. Like, do you know a lot of people that rage quit, so to speak?
I do know some, yeah, that they just disappeared, and yeah, they were banging it out for a while. And I know one guy, friend of mine, he had I think like 15,000 followers. He just left one day. I've never seen him since. So
really,
yeah.
I wonder if he'd send me his Twitter followers. I feel like I produce gold for these people, and they just poo-poo me.
You do. You and Bunchu are just gold producers.
That's right.
You're alchemists.
I was just about to pull that word. I was just thinking about it. Alchemist is the right word. That's funny. So, all right. We should probably get in. You must have. I've been complaining about my wreckness. Do you have any crypto wreck stories you could share with us?
I certainly do. Now, aside from just like the general fact that I got in basically at or around the top and watched it all go down, the fact that I was this concept of hodling was very attractive to me, and just hang on to it. Everything's going to be fine. It took me 6 months to figure out that, hey, you don't need to hang on to this. Do you remember that meme with like a dog in a house on fire?
Of course.
Yeah, the cartoon.
Everything's fine.
Yeah, everything's fine. Exactly. Yeah, that people would put hodl. Am I doing it right? That kind of thing. But more specifically, I was on a bunch of exchanges in 2018 that went belly up. Mm-hmm. I didn't lose too much money, if any, really. But just the fact that I was on all these shitteous exchanges.
So I was the same way. I want to know some of these exchanges.
Okay. Yeah.
I feel like we probably were on a lot of similar ones.
Yeah. Well, one that did not go belly up, but if you look at my Twitter feed from 2 years ago, I was shilling the most ridiculous crap. A lot of it was on Trade Ogre.
Mm-hmm. Now Trade Ogre, is that a Manero based platform, or that's how it started, or something? Does that sound about right?
Yeah, they're all forks of, I believe, Manero, or a lot of them are, and they use this thing called Crypto Night, or they used to, and it's easy to fork things. And like there's one called Wow Nero, with a pink and yellow logo. That's
amazing.
Yeah, but so that was one that I've since do not go on anything on there. But the ones that went literally belly up was, of course, Cryptopia.
Mm-hmm. I was a big fan of. That was my first. I think after Coinbase and stuff like that. I think Cryptopia was my first exchange.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad exchange really. Just that they went away, and I don't believe they returned people's money.
They did not.
No,
they did not. I had a few shekels on there. Nothing crazy, but I would prefer to have it.
Sure,
all being equal.
Yeah. Who wouldn't? There was one called Crypto Hub, or C Hub for short, as the cool kids called it.
Chubb, you mean?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever used that one.
Yeah, well, it's not around anymore.
No.
That one was one called Maple.
I remember Maple.
The shame of Canada.
Oh, wow. I think Maple is thanking their lucky stars that Quadriga came around, because that became the very big shame of Canada.
Yes. Well, yeah, the Quadriga, I was involved with, well, not involved with, but I used Quadriga exclusively as my on-ramp for months when I first got in. Luckily didn't have anything on the exchange, but what a crazy story. This guy he writes his own will, and then a week later he goes to India and shits himself to death or something. And
no, he had Crohn's disease, and I know, speaking as somebody that knows a lot of people, not a lot of people, a few people with Crohn's disease, India is probably not the best place to go, especially if you're not genetically inclined to be in that temperature or that climate and eating that food, because that is tough for the strongest of stomachs.
Well, you're exactly right. It's not a place you think of to go if you had that ailment. But it's also, I didn't know this, but the town that he went to is notorious for being an area that if you want to fake your own death,
yes,
these guys have a whole cottage industry,
right,
where you can do it.
A lot of fake death certificates flying around there.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I didn't lose any on that. I did lose money on this cloud mining operation called Hashflare.
Ooh, Hashflare. I think we've had a couple of people. I want to say, I think Brecky was on, and he was mentioned. I think he got pinched on the flare.
Yeah, I was so excited about it. It sounded great. I don't know anything about mining, but these guys are going to do it for me. And if I gave them $2,000 and lost it all. So I was. I
hate laughing, but it's funny.
and that was maybe a few months after I first got in, and that hurt because I didn't have that much in at that point.
Right. Now, were you like me? Were you kind of like I wouldn't say I went full bore with my entire stack when I got in, but I put in a good chunk off the get-go. And the more excited I got, I got in where I was seeing profits very early on and at a rapid rate of return. So I kept throwing money at it. And then February hit, and then, I kept throwing money at it. And it turns out you can just keep throwing money at it, and the problem just stays. It doesn't go away.
Yeah, no, it's definitely something you can lose a lot of money doing, especially in that time frame too. The early 2000s, like just after the top, it was just crazy. Yeah, and I looked at it like I'm sure a lot of people do, that when something does pump or you're going to put fresh fiat in, you're like, I'm not a gambler, but this is how a gambler thinks, is you're almost losing money if you don't put more in.
Right? It's so true. Well, actually, I should probably touch on, you mentioned Quadriga as your on-ramp, on and off of the Bitcoin train.
Yeah.
I actually just cashed in a little bit of BTC from, again, I was joking earlier, but, you keep throwing money at it. Eventually it does work out because I just kept buying BTC, and, I was buying BTC at, $3,600, $3,700, $3,800. Yeah. I remember a lot at that point. And, I just cashed them out. We were at 10.5, and I had actually never, being in Canada, we don't talk about this enough. But it's not as easy for Canadians to go back into Canadian dollars.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? As opposed to Americans, you can use Coinbase or whatever. You can go back and forth fairly easily.
Yeah.
At least from what I can see. So I actually never converted back. I remember, I talked to my wife about it pretty frequently. And she's like, I'd show her my, my Delta app or my Blockfolia app and say, hey, this is technically what we have. And she's like, really? She's like, have you actually tried getting it back into Canadian dollars yet? And it's like, no, but I know how to. So I actually just recently used in Canada, for any Canadian listeners, CoinSquare. They're the coin, I kind of call them the Coinbase of Canada. They're pretty, the fees are a little higher and this and that. But as far as, converting stuff back to CAD and then getting it into your bank account at a pretty quick rate, it was pretty good. I was happy overall.
CoinSquare.
CoinSquare. It's. I would say they have you should see billboards if you ever get into downtown Toronto.
Yeah.
I've seen CoinSquare billboards in that neck of the woods. So if you're like if you're ever visiting Toronto on Lakeshore or on the Gardner, I remember I've seen CoinSquare billboards there before. So like I said, it's pretty. They're pretty established. I think I'd say it's the biggest one in Canada.
I've heard of them and one called Shakepay. I have.
Okay, I don't want to throw shade at Shakepay.
Yep.
But I'm going to throw a little shade at Shakepay.
Go for it. I have.
Because somebody, one of our fellow Canadian crypto Twitter people, had recommended that to me after Quadriga. Oh. and I had used them to, no problem buying, crypto. And then one day I got an email saying that somebody had changed my password.
Oh.
On this app, and I had reached out a couple of times, saying, hey, I got this email. Can you, help me out? And I think I probably sent about 3 or 4 emails and never got an answer back. So I've kind of been off of Shakepay.
That's too bad. I've never really made enough money to get it off yet, so it's not a concern of mine.
Yeah. I didn't have any money on, I didn't have money on Shakepay, but I don't know. And it could have been maybe a user error on my end. Maybe the emails were going somewhere else and I couldn't find them. Yeah. But well, CoinSquare.
Yeah, I'll check them out. Something else to think about with the Quadriga going down is that when it comes time for me, like let's say we have a giant Altseason and I make a ton of money,
right?
And then I go to do taxes next year. I don't even have access to my record with Quadriga on how much and at what price I bought my BTC at.
So it never happened, is what you're telling me.
Well, yeah, just
now, how do you feel about it? We talk about the U.S. a lot. How do you what are your impressions of tax law when it comes to cryptocurrency here in Canada?
Well, I don't really have any clue, and I know that
I'm with you. I don't either. It doesn't sound like it's a topic of conversation.
No,
I assume it's the mid-90s U.S. Army. Don't ask, don't tell.
Yeah.
Is that, yeah.
Well, I think there's one question that I'm waiting to hear about, and it's not an issue yet because no one's crypto millionaires. But the thing is, if they're going to charge us taxes on each trade or just on and off. And I know that just this week, France.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah, which is great news. They came out with a ruling saying as long as you can prove how much you paid for some BTC, we're going to tax you on what you're cashing out at that point, which is great because, I mean, I move stuff around all the time. I'm trading bags and parts of bags. That would be just a nightmare to try to figure out. I know there's apps you can use, but I'm not using them. So
no way. I mean, in my opinion, is if you do, say you make a little bit of money, enough that you feel guilty of not paying your taxes if you didn't. I think any effort, put forth by the person, I think in the government's eyes, if you've made an effort, I don't think they're going to dig into it all that much. So if you're claiming something, I just don't see them digging into it more so than that. I could be very wrong, though.
I hope people from Canada Revenue are listening and take your advice.
Yeah, this is financial advice, Canada Revenue. Take it. But yeah, no, you could also take some cues from France. Is it right? They were only taxing when they converted back to the fiat currency, correct? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, so you had to prove that, and it's interesting because you could buy some, who's to say which BTC you're cashing out? You know what I mean? If you bought it over time. And
I always wanted to play I found this hard drive, and it had BTC on it. Right? I mean, I found an old computer and it had this Bitcoin thing, and so what does that mean? How do you tax me on that one?
Well, you might end up in a courtroom in Florida,
Right, exactly. Good point.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna move on here. I'm gonna play a new game since you're our altcoin aficionado. I think that's what we're going to call you now, Altcoin Aficionado.
Okay.
We're going to play a new game here called Chambers Bag or Bust.
Ooh, love it.
Isn't that exciting? Okay. So, I like to get feedback on some of the bags that I have. So I'm gonna open up my Delta app here, and I'm gonna go through a couple of the bags I have, and you tell me whether this is a good bag or a bust bag.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So is this something you would hold if you were if you were me, or this is something you would cut loose?
All right, I'm ready.
So I'm gonna we got Bitcoin, we got Ethereum, we got Manero. I won't actually. You know what? We'll start with Manero. How do you feel, Manero? I've been scaling into Manero as much as I could. I think that's a smart move. Do you agree with me?
Yes, definitely. Definitely, I would keep Manero. Even with the things, there's some question about privacy coins. I know Britain just passed some things about that, but
yes,
that's the granddaddy of them all. And if anybody's going to survive, it would be Manero.
All right, I agree. All right, I'm very excited about this. Okay, next one. I'm going to say this is in in position size, I guess. I'm going to be going by. So the sooner you hear the name, the bigger the position I have, I guess.
Okay.
This one's tricky. This I pull a lot of. I kind of take some pages out of your book. This one's called Reserve Rights, RSR. I have a fairly significant bag of this.
Definitely bag. That's a really good one.
Yeah, it's a good one?
Yeah, that is amazing. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about. Peter Thiel is one of the big
Oh,
investors.
that's right. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that guy, if you haven't seen this documentary called The PayPal Mafia.
Yes. I haven't seen that.
It's on YouTube. It's like a 30-minute documentary. They talk about how Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, all these guys that started PayPal, went on to do great things like
right.
Tesla, SpaceX, all kinds like Uber, all kinds of big internet companies. And Peter Thiel is like, so when he didn't start Reserve, but when he got involved in it, people perked up their ears and went like, wow, like apparently half of Silicon Valley is buying this now. So
all right. Yeah. Oh, geez, now I'm excited. So yeah, I think by volume that's my fourth biggest bag. So I'm excited about this. So all right, we might have to do some taxes in the future. All right, next one here. I think I'm crazy for this one, but you tell me. Pundi X, NPXS.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about this?
Well,
I picked it up on the cheap though. I picked it up at 5 sats.
Okay, so yeah, I was in Pundi X for about a year, and then I got out, and I go back and forth between this one. It's bottomed out so much that it's one of those ones like MFT is up there with them too. That it's
we'll get there. I got MFT on the list.
It's so low that all I can say is that I got rid of mine. I would consider getting rid of it.
Okay, all right. So maybe wait till it gets to 6, if it maybe rebounds to 6, and take a little bit of a profit and see if I can get out with my tail between my legs.
I wouldn't do it now. I mean, they may pump. Like, you never know. People might come in and go, "Wow, look at this one! It's so undervalued," and get it. But I do know they had a lot of hype about their phone they were releasing, like the first blockchain phone or something. Right. And now there's at least 3 or 4 companies that are making blockchain phones. So
right. I actually think I bought this bag to apologize to Shil Nye for picking on him or for laughing too much.
I remember, Nye was really into it last year.
Yes, he was. I that was my peace offering, and I think he still blocked me.
He blocked you, eh?
Oh, yeah. Okay. You know what? It's not my fault. I just laughed a little too hard at some of the... Are you familiar with Crypto Fungus and his memery?
Yep.
So he was, when he was digging into Nye a little bit. He's very nice about it now, but I thought some of that stuff was hilarious.
Yeah.
Did you ever see the one that got me? Was the video that was kind of highlighted together about all of the I don't know what to call them, multi-level marketing or some sort of compilation of videos that he had put together.
I saw that. Yeah.
It was devastating. I could not stop laughing. I thought that was the funniest thing. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I have a ton of embarrassing stuff in my background. I just don't think much of it is on film or, on video. So
I know.
Thank goodness.
He's a divisive character. I'm friends with him, but
I'm a big fan. Don't get me wrong. It's just, funny is funny to me.
It was so cringeworthy, and I felt bad for him to have that caught on tape. Wow.
Yeah, that's tough. That's a tough one. Yes, I'm a big fan. I just funny is funny. I would laugh if that was me too. So
yes,
I try to be equal opportunity laugher. Okay, next we're gonna do a couple more here. Because this is going to be a really sad trip down memory lane here. I have, and they were actually on the show. I think I picked up a bag I think it was just before they came on. This is Celsius Network, CEL.
Yeah.
They are a crypto lending and crypto, I guess they pay you back in crypto if you hold, BTC on their app and stuff like that. Very similar to like BlockFi. Are you familiar with these guys?
Yeah, I am familiar with them. I don't have them. I'm going to go neutral on that one because
okay, fair enough.
No, I think they're one of the Binance IEOs. If I'm not
No,
mistaken. Oh, I'm
that's
thinking of CELR.
You are thinking of CELR.
Okay, okay.
When I would look for the cash tag, I would get that one confused all the time.
Well, the only thing I would say about Celsius is that they do have competition. Off the top of my head, there's Nexo, and at least I believe Salt was into lending, and I'm not sure. I think that's going to require mass adoption at a later point, maybe.
Right. No, that makes sense.
So if you're willing to hang on to it after a bull run or something, it could do really well.
All right. Okay. I'll hang. I'm still in the green on it, so so far so good.
Good.
What about? I have a fairly big bag of Storm. How do you feel about Storm? That's one of those ones where it had its cycle. I think there's a lot of good fundamental behind it, good team behind it. I think our friend Mike Novogratz is on that one as well, maybe.
Yep.
What do you think?
I don't have that one. I do know that I think you're right. It's got great fundamentals and a really good team. I can't go wrong with Novogratz. I have seen some people on Twitter that claim it's dead, but you can't put too much stock into that, so I would keep it.
Okay, perfect. Here's one for you. What about, kind of in the same vein, what about Komodo, KMD?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love them. That's definitely a great bag. Yeah, they have. I love their tech. They should be a really good platform. They should do really well. I know that they had a bit of a slump. I want to say like earlier this year, people were really excited about them, and then they were supposed to come up with a new logo and upgrade some tech, and it didn't happen. But then it did. So I don't have any right now, but I had Komodo for most of last year, and I really like them.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right, here's one that I really liked, and then all of a sudden I blinked and it took a bath on me. LTO Network, LTO.
Yeah, I know them. I would definitely keep them.
Yeah.
They're in the same vein as another one called Lit, L-I-T, or Litian. They're both from Europe, and the thing I like about LTO is that they have such a small supply. So even if you're that would have a better chance than something with maybe even Storm. I forget what the number is, but it's so small. I think it's south of 100 million that they should do well.
Okay.
Yeah. And they changed their logo too. I know it's not very important, but I like the new logo.
Logo change can help occasionally.
Yeah.
All right. Let's do. Actually, I think that does it. Do you want to talk about? I have a bag of one ledger, OLT.
Yep.
It's up 37% today.
Did very well.
Yeah. So that one's. We talked about it a little bit.
Did you know those guys are from Toronto?
I did not know that.
Yes, sir. They have a pretty big office down by the Roy Thompson Hall.
Okay, I know where you are. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's in the new City Hall building.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Those guys. I initially took a pass on them because I was doing some research on them, and I saw that they had like 30 people working for them, and I think that's good sometimes that you have, it's not just two guys, they have 30. Mm-hmm. But then I was thinking it could be like they have this giant stack of cash that they raised, and they could get sloppy. Like they've got this really nice looking office, and are they mailing it in, or are they working hard?
Right, that's a good question. Maybe we'll get them on the show, because I know we had another. There was another company down the road from Toronto. I think they were in Waterloo. They were in STO, and I can't think of the name now.
Okay.
A big one.
Waterloo, I don't know.
Yeah, I think they were kind of based out of the University of Waterloo. I think that's where they came out of.
I just found one out today called Adbank. I looked doing some research into them. They say they're from Collingwood.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is in Ontario for people who don't know. But
yeah, it's like a beach community, though. I don't trust anybody that lives at the beach all the time.
Yeah, it'd be like saying you have a company that's headquartered in Martha's Vineyard. Only
right, exactly.
Nice,
yeah, that might. We'll see. All right. I like that. I feel a little bit better about my bags. I feel I feel like I might have to cut Pundy X loose. I've been saying this for a bit now, so I've been feeling it internally. So you're just really just reinforcing some of my emotions.
Yeah.
We are. I think we're running. We're right at the 52-minute mark here.
Okay.
I feel like that's a pretty good first show for Kyle. Kyle, how do you feel, man?
I love it. I felt like I was Al Pacino in Casino, where I was like handicapping sports figures. Like this guy's got a broken calf. He's never going to go anywhere.
So, just for everybody listening, what we're thinking of doing is actually having Kyle on intermittently. He's a busy guy. He's got real life work he's doing. But I think what we might have him on as our what did I call you earlier? Our
Altcoin Aficionado.
That's the one, our Altcoin Aficionado. So we'll have him on periodically. I know as we get into bull markets, I know people are going to want to talk about different altcoins and stuff like that. So I think it's a smart move. You shouldn't be listening to me. Maybe you shouldn't be listening to Kyle, but you should definitely be listening to Kyle a little bit more than you should be listening to me. And we all know Bunch doesn't know anything about altcoins. So I thought it'd be a good idea to have some sort of aficionado when it came to these things. So as the markets come up, maybe you can help us with our Rekt index, which is could use a little sprucing up, and maybe just give us your thoughts and maybe some of your sneaky picks. Maybe we'll have a monthly pick or something from Kyle and see where it goes, and we'll rate his track record.
I love it. I'm a huge fan of the show. As you guys know, I've always listened to you guys since day one, and this is amazing. I'm loving it.
Yeah, you've definitely been one of our biggest, if not the biggest, fan supporter of the show. So I was as soon as we chatted the other day on the phone, I was just like, yeah, Kyle's solid. So I was very excited to talk to you on air. And I think it's going to be great. I think people are going to be clamoring for Kyle's picks in the not too distant future. So anyhow, is there anything? I'll give you the floor, Kyle. Is there anything you want to add? Where can we find you? All that fun stuff.
No, I have nothing to add. Just you can find me on Twitter. That's all you need to know. Kyle MacLean X. I'm not involved in too many other things right now. I have nothing.
And you're not related, right? To the big MacLean.
No, I'm not. No.
Okay. All right. Yeah. You were actually telling me that people mess up your name all the time.
Yeah.
I found that one strange. I think maybe a Canadian thing. MacLean seems like a regular last name, but I
would think it's fairly common, but people
here we
call
are.
me MacLean or something,
Yeah, I mean, do they not watch Die Hard? Come on.
Yeah, MacLean.
So anyways, for Kyle MacLean and myself, Chamber, until next time, don't get wrecked, and that is financial advice.